and we're on a virtual meeting for the CAFO Advisory Committee. This is our second of 3 meetings for calendar year 2021, and welcome all who are attending. So this is a virtual meeting that's being recorded digitally, and then the digital recording will be made available after the meeting. We post that to our website. So if we want to try to go around the virtual room and do some introductions, some people's names I can see and some callers I can't identify. So I'll go with the ones that I can identify, and then we'll let everybody else in. Christy, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Christy with the CAFO program. I am the
You're breaking up a little bit, Christy, and I don't know if your camera's not working or not, but so that's Christy Caldwell. Janet Short is out, and so Christy's helping to fill in for that position. Ellen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Ellen Hammond with the Oregon Department of Agriculture. I've been with the Ag Water Quality Program for almost 25 years, and I am currently leading the Agricultural Drainage Channel Maintenance Program, and we'll be doing a presentation on that a little later in this meeting.
All right, thanks, Ellen. Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth Moore. I'm with the EQ Water Quality. I'm a general permit writer.
Thanks, Beth. And Tammy?
I'm the Executive Director for the Oregon Dairy Farmers Association. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you. Marganne?
Hello, everyone. My name is Marganne Allen. I'm the Water Quality Program Manager for Department of Agriculture, and the Ag Drainage Channel Program is in that sphere. Nice to be here, and I'll plan on listening in just so I can hear more about and learn more about the world of CAFO. Thanks.
Thanks, Marganne, and thanks so much for making your staff available for the presentation. Troy.
Good morning, good afternoon. I guess we're at now. The days just keeps marching on. I'm Troy Downing. I work for Oregon State University as the State Dairy Extension Specialist. Thanks.
Thanks, Troy. Appreciate attendance. Hi, Jennifer. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Jennifer Cruikshank. I'm with Oregon State University Extension, and I do dairy management in the Willamette Valley.
All right, thanks for being present. Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie Page with Oregon Department of Agriculture. I'm the Natural Resources Program Area Director.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. Kevin.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin Fenn. I am the compliance lead for the Agricultural Water Quality Program. I've been with ODA for about 14 years and just here to help with anything compliance related for the Ag Drainage Channel maintenance presentation.
All right, thanks, Kevin. We appreciate it. Allie.
Hi there, Allie McIntyre, the Executive Director of the Northwest Chicken Council. Glad to be on the call today.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Miranda. I'm a legal intern with the Oregon Farm Bureau, and I'm filling in for Marianne Cooper.
All right, well, welcome, Sarah. Thanks for attending. Mark.
Mark Oldenkamp, Valley Fresh Foods, egg production representative.
All right, thanks, Mark. Those are the only folks that I can identify. If there are other callers on that would like to identify yourself, I'd open the mic to you.
Hi, Wim, it's Janelle Romaine representing 3 Mile Canyon Farms.
Oh, hi, Danielle.
Dan Luthold, Tillamook County Dairy Farmer, TCCA.
Oh, good afternoon, Dan. Thanks for spending time with us.
Nothing else to do, ha
Watch the corn grow, huh?
Yeah.
Anyone else who would like to introduce themselves? All right, not hearing anybody. I appreciate it. It's one of the ways that we can keep attendance to put in the minutes. So the next thing is to ask if anybody has corrections or additions that they want to make to the minutes of the April 2021 meeting. And if there are any, we hear those now. You can also submit them later in writing to Christy, myself, or Janet, and we'll make sure that those get added to that record if there are any. All right, not hearing any additions, subtractions, or corrections. We'll move on to our first real agenda item, which is going to be a presentation of the agricultural channel maintenance program and how it might affect CAFO operators. So that program's housed in the Ag Water Quality program. It's underneath the umbrella of that program. And I'd make a small correction in the agenda. I think the presenters today will be Ellen Hammond and Kevin Fan. Margan is the program manager. So Ellen and Kevin, take it away.
Ellen, you're on mute.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay through my headphone?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to talk about the Ag Drainage Channel Maintenance Program. This is a new program and it's still in flux. So I'll talk about the current status and where we were hoping to get to in the short term and the long term. And if you have a question at any time, please go ahead and just type it in the chat box. And Kevin, if you could also watch that while we're going through this, that would be really helpful to me. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the reason for the program and the current status of the program and how people can participate and the current process, which again is still a little bit in flux. And feel free to ask any questions as we move forward with this. So we all know that drainage of lands is really important, especially on the west side. It's not as big of a deal on the east side, but on the west side, Willamette Valley and much of the coast, it's very important. And of course, it requires maintenance because these channels will fill up with sediment. It actually requires a DSL permit and with a few exemptions, but the permit has been costly and complicated, and actually none has been issued in about 20 years, which means either the work was not being done or it was being done illegally. So I mentioned some exemptions, and these are important because they will play into this program as I move forward. So there's some exemptions to when someone needs a permit from DSL to do channel maintenance work. And there's additional ones, but some of the ones that are probably going to be most relevant to this program are roadside ditches, specific roadside ditches. So for instance, they've got to be pretty narrow, no fish and no wetlands. Irrigation ditches, and this one is especially important. And so if the irrigation ditch is primarily to deliver irrigation water and it's dewatered outside of the irrigation season, then it's exempt from requiring a DSL permit. And there's also something called exempt maintenance, which means just the minimal amount of work that's needed to maintain the use of that channel for drainage, as long as the spoils are placed on uplands or very thinly spread on converted wetlands. And so, so there's a few exemptions here, but work has been going on in these channels for years. And so in order to make sure that the work is being done in a responsible manner, there was legislation passed in 2019. And what it did was it created an effective regulatory process for the state, or hopefully effective, that would encourage landowners to do the work in a legal manner and in a way that helps protect the ecological function of these channels. And so we have the state statute and also rules. And what they do is require Department of Ag to work with Department of State Lands and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. So the Ag Channel Maintenance Program does allow maintenance, but it's really focused on protecting the fish and the ecological functions of these channels. It's very streamlined compared to the DSL process, and there's a lot of work being done to make sure that landowners and water districts are aware of the program, aware of what their options are, aware of what the concerns are with channel maintenance, and hoping that we can get more work done in a legal, responsible manner. It also strongly encourages landowner assistance through soil and water conservation districts, NRCS, outreach, technical assistance, and all those kinds of things. So certain channels apply or qualify for this program. They need to be traditionally maintained to facilitate agricultural drainage. And they can include both what people think of as ditches, but also streams. And there's a lot of streams that are used as drainage channels. So both of these can qualify for this program. They also need to have provided drainage in the past 5 years. So can't go back in and maintain a channel that has not been really used for drainage for years. They also must not be essential salmonid habitat, and they have to be dry at the time of work. So what the Ag Drainage Channel Maintenance Program did was really take the DSL permit process and convert or make it possible for landowners and water districts to go through a notice process instead for those channels that qualify. Traditionally maintained in the last 5 years, and dry and non-ESH. So if a channel meets those qualifications, it could then fall under the ODA notice program instead. There's no cost for the ODA notice, and it's just a 45-day process. So it's just way streamlined compared to DSL process. There are 27 requirements, and they some of these are mandatory conditions, some of these are prohibited conditions, but they all relate to the when the work is done, how it's being done, and protecting those wetland and ecological functions of the channel. And again, there's incentives for landowners. So there's a couple things that are incentives for landowners that are actually part of this program. And one is it allows the temporary storage of spoils along the channel, including wetlands. However, landowners and water districts are not allowed to place spoils in natural, undisturbed wetlands. In addition, it greatly increases the sediment removal limits. So now up to 3,000 cubic yards can be removed per linear mile of channel. However, it's restricted to just new work. And the landowner or water district cannot widen or deepen the channels. So they need to, again, this is assumed to be that minimal amount of work that's needed in order to make that channel function. And just because someone wants to make it twice as deep, that's not allowed. The work is also supposed to be done during regional dry maintenance time periods that are set by Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. And these are in flux. They're currently temporary rules. And you can see that most of these dates are July, August, September. There's a few that are later. And these are dates at which channels in general that would qualify for this program are assumed to likely be dry. If a landowner wants to work outside this time period, they can submit a variance requesting that work be done outside this time period. So the process is complicated, not for the landowner or the water district that's applying, but for the three agencies. So a Department of Ag receives the notice. We have 5 days to determine if it's if all the basic information is included. And then we work with Department of Fish and Wildlife to see if they want to add any conditions to the notice. And then at the end, DSL may get pulled in if there's disagreement between ODA and ODF and W on conditions. The program also includes site visits on the properties to determine, for instance, if additional conditions might be necessary, or to protect the ecological functions, or for also compliance issues. And we're still working out all the details, but ODA is going to be the first line of determining whether someone is doing the work, for instance, without a notice or violating the terms of their notice. And if it needs to actually go to enforcement, then DSL is called in. The legislation also included a study of the impacts of this work by OSU, and I'll mention that in a moment. Are there any questions anybody wants to ask yet? I don't see anything in the chat box. Okay, so I'm not going to go into detail on this, but this is just an idea to show you how complex this process is. And so far, we have only received 2 notices. The first was in March, and we went through this whole process and added some conditions to the notice, and then validated it and notified the landowner that you know, you can do the work that you had proposed. Here are some conditions, additional conditions to keep in mind. And he had also submitted a variance request to do the work just a little later in the season, which we had also agreed to. The second notice came in last week, but there was not enough information on the placement of spoils. And so you see this 5-day max at the bottom left. We didn't have all the information for it to be complete. So I've asked the water district to resubmit with just a little more information. The OSU study of impacts is a 5-year project, and OSU is working with volunteer landowners to evaluate fish and the to evaluate a bunch of different parameters related to the potential work that's going to get done. They're doing before and after work. And I'm not that familiar with this project. I was not part of this whole program when it first got started. So Kevin or Margan, can you explain just a little bit more of what they're looking for?
Excuse me. Sure, I'd be happy to talk about that. They are basically seeking to get landowners to voluntarily participate in the study, and they are their mandate is to try to quantify the the benefits and the impacts of how this work affects the aquatic life that focuses on the in-stream and streamside area. They're looking at the composition of the fish species that occur there. They're looking at water quality parameters, everything from temperature to sediment to a variety of other water column kind of measurements, both before and after, and with some control channels as well that will remain unmaintained during this time period. They're looking at streamside vegetation to assess the changes in those over time. Yeah, those really, it's just to be able to describe and report back to the legislature about how successful we're being in ensuring maintenance of those important ecological and water quality functions.
All right, thank you. And so the professors at Oregon State are continually trying to find volunteer landowners. So if anybody knows of any landowners that might be interested in participating in this process, if you could please get a hold of me or Morgan and pass on names or information or any of that, it would be extremely helpful. Current status of the program is that we're focused on the Willamette Valley and the Umpqua region, and we just got legislation signed last month that will allow us to phase in this program statewide, because although it was originally designed or envisioned to apply mostly to the Willamette Valley and the South Coast, it became a statewide program. And so ODA is in the process of starting the Rules Advisory Committee process in order to develop the rules that for phasing this in statewide. We've got a website that's up, it's up to date. However, it continually changes as we improve our outreach documents and our forms. We had a person hired, Tyler, who was responsible for implementing this program and providing outreach, and he just took another position he just left ODA to fulfill his lifelong dream in Montana or Wyoming, and so that position is currently open, but we were doing a lot of outreach to SWCDs in particular this spring to let them know what was coming, and we will be resuming more of those outreach activities. We've also done a training at the request of one of the SWCDs in the Willamette Valley. There's also a memorandum of understanding that's in draft between the three agencies. It's almost finalized, but it helps spell out that the details of the process in that big chart you saw where all the agencies are interacting with each other. And then the OSU study, as I indicated, they are looking for more volunteers. And Morgan has just typed in the recruitment for the Ag Channel Specialist. So if anyone is interested in applying for that, know someone who might want to apply, take a look in the chat box for the link. So we've got 4 forms that help us implement this whole process. So the first is the notice, and that is the request by a landowner or a water district that says, I want to do this work. It's very short form and fairly straightforward. The second one is a variance request, and the variance request is if a landowner or water district wants to work outside the regional dry maintenance time period at a time when they believe it to be dry, and then they can request that, or they can request a variance from any of the most of the mandatory conditions. In addition, if there's an emergency and they don't want to wait 45 days, then they can also file an expedited review requesting us to move more quickly. And a reminder that these notices are only available for essential salmonid habitat, for non-essential salmonid habitat streams. So if somebody wants to do work on, or stream or channel, if someone wants to do work on a channel that is designated as ESH in the DSL database and map, then they can request that the designation be changed to a non-ESH. We also have a BMP manual that is just like this close to being final. We have the interim one on our website. And if anybody wants to submit a notice, there's multiple ways to submit that notice. And then we're also required to post the valid notices on our website. There's a bunch of people from ODA involved, and you can see we have that implementation slot is open right now, and we're looking forward to getting that filled. And if anybody wants more information, they can go to the website. We also have a Gov Delivery sign up. So if someone wants to receive email updates, then they can sign up there, or they can get a hold of me. And because there's so much in flux right now, I have not sent out a Gov Delivery in several months, but I should be putting something together here shortly. So in terms of how this applies to CAFOs, the CAFOs, many of them may have fields that have these drainage channels on them. And so, and many of those are ones for which a permit is actually required, but the landowner may be able to go through our notice program instead and simplify the process and still do the work in a environmentally responsible manner. So that's the explanation of the program. Are there any questions?
So Alan, this is Wim. I had a question. You talked about the fact that this, of course, doesn't apply to every stream or ditch.
Right.
I want some thought about developing maps, maybe regionally, that could identify streams where that are known essential salmonid habitat. So folks could just look at that and say, if one of those is on my property, I can't use this program.
Yes, and we have a link on our website to the ESH maps. And this is something else. I'm glad you brought up the ESH maps. So the DSL used to update the map every 5 years, but as a result of this, their legislation in 2019, they've gone to a process where they update every year. And so that map is available for the public to look at, and we do have a link on the website to that map.
Oh, great, thank you. Other questions?
Okay, and just a reminder, yeah, these are the kinds of channels that can qualify, but still, once this is like the course filter, and then you need to look and see, does it fall under one of the exemptions where it wouldn't need a notice or a DSL permit. So this is the course filter, and then there's the fine filter, which looks at things like those exemptions that I mentioned. here and some additional exemptions.
Yeah, the one comment I would make is that the other training that we're going to have internally is to have this presentation made to all the CAFO inspectors, so they'll be aware, and probably a little more in-depth look at what an application is and how it's to be made, so that those inspectors can carry that information with them and in the course of their CAFO inspection. If a permittee is telling us that, hey, I'm going to clean that ditch or would like to clean that ditch, they can provide this information onto them.
Yeah, and we don't really have a good landowner brochure yet. There's so much stuff in flux still that we have the BMP manual, but in terms of a nice handy dandy handout, like a little 2-pager, we haven't quite put that together yet because we're still working out a few of the logistics in the process. But as soon as we get that, we will be distributing that to all ODA staff, including CAFO staff and anybody else, so that we can continue to get the word out. So that will be great.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. The other question
Margan?
I have, I think it was evident that this doesn't have anything to do with drainage tiles, any subsurface drainage, but I just wanted to confirm that.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're saying.
Oh, so this program is not applicable to tile drained fields or any kind of tile drain installation or maintenance.
So
it's
not directly related to tile drains, but it is for the purposes of the channels that the tile drains connect to. And so if these channels are not functioning correctly, the tile drains will not function correctly. So it's directly related, but it is not for tile drain installation or tile drain maintenance.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I'd mention, well, two things to make sure it's clear, is that right now the Department of Fish and Wildlife is going through a rulemaking process to be prepared for what permanent rules they want to do in lieu of their current temporary rules for the regional dry maintenance time periods, which, as Ellen went over, directly affect when this work can happen. So there's a lot of, we are joined at the hip in our work with both the Department of Fish and Wildlife and Department of State lands in this endeavor, and we have a very good working relationship. So that's rulemaking effort number one, and Ellen already said this, but rulemaking effort number two, which will come out, is our own rulemaking having to do with that statewide rollout. So I just kind of want to repeat that again. So if folks are seeing repeated information about rulemaking by the different agencies, that's what's going on about the different facets of the program.
So Kevin, is there anything you'd like to add to what's been mentioned?
I guess just the one thing that I would add is that we are going to have audits of these as they move forward. So it'll be like a compliance audit. We'll do, if we receive complaints about either activities that are taking place, we'll evaluate those to determine if that falls to our program or to the Department of State Land. So if we get a complaint about an activity that either has a valid notice in place or would qualify for a valid notice, we would do the compliance related work to that. So it's going to follow very closely to how we do compliance in the Ag Water Quality Program to start with. So we try to achieve compliance without enforcement. If there's a need to go to enforcement, it would go to Department of State Lands. And so it's a little bit different in that aspect, but that's kind of just a basic summary of the compliance piece.
All right, I guess any other questions? One last chance for questions or comments. And then I would ask the question, I don't know if anybody would like to have this presentation if it's available. If you do, just let us know and we'll, I think it's available to be shared.
Yes. Yes, if you know anyone who would like to have this presentation, please let me know or let Wim know and he can let me know. What I've given you is our basic presentation that we're giving to the SWCDs and anyone else who wants the background on the program, and we can customize it for whatever audience that we're presenting to. But definitely, we would love to get this word out. Okay.
All right. I think,
Tammy?
yeah, I
yep.
Copy in the chat box. We'll make sure you get one, Tim.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Ellen, Kevin, and Margan. We really appreciate the information. And yeah, I think as this rolls out, there definitely will be some cross-pollination with CAFO, with our CAFO folks, and as it expands across the state as well. So thanks for that. And we may call you back in the future as rules for the different agencies get updated and you get some more applications and activities under your belt. May call you back to see kind of how it's rolling after a while.
I'll be sticking around just so I can learn more about all things CAFO. So if a question pops into your head later, I'll most likely be available.
Oh, great, Marjan. Thank you. All right. So before we leave this topic, this is a kind of a related issue, is just to give you all a little preview about our October meeting and a presentation that we've got scheduled to be presented during that meeting. And that's on a research project that's going on at the OSU Dairy on a permeable drain reaction, tile drain reactor. There's a grad student and a professor, Dr. Chaplin, from the Bioresource Engineering Group, and Tori Downing's been involved, as well as the dairy folks at the OSU Dairy. We funded part of the research through the CAFO Fund program, and got a report on the first couple of years worth of data, and so excited to see that. And Frank and his grad student, and probably Troy will weigh in on a presentation that will be coming in October. So write that down in your calendars, and it's a neat best management practices that's been installed in the Pacific Northwest, and now they have some data to show how that operates. So we're looking forward to listening to that in the future. All right. So now let's see if I can go back to my agenda here. I'm not sure that I'll be the presenter, but I do need to figure out a way to find the agenda. Hang on one quick second. So the next item is going to be an update on there's a couple things that we're working on. One is the CAFO MOU. This is the MOU that we have with DEQ that gives authority to our agency to operate the CAFO permit program. And so that has been a work in progress for several months now. The most current status of that activity is that we're working on preparing presentations and finalizing all the materials for that for a July 22nd meeting of the Environmental Quality Commission. So the commission is DEQ's rulemaking body. They are the entity that has to approve or deny or modify these types of agreements. And that's basically what our status of that agreement is now. Once that gets published on the, once the staff reports are all done and that gets published, we can make that available. And then DQ staff wanted to make sure that we mentioned that there isn't the ability for public comment on that document, and that is during the meeting. So they'll have a special public comment section set up just to make comments on the MOU, and that'll be during the presentation period of the MOU. So if you have interest in reviewing that and potentially making comments, look forward to that. When as DQ shares that with us, we'll make sure we share that out with you, and then you can schedule time if you're interested to make comments in that arena. All right. Any questions on that particular item? See, look in the chat box here. Don't see anything. All right, so moving on to the next item, which is the NPDES CAFO general permit renewal drop-off status. So I was going to talk about two different things in this item. One is a little bit of an update about where the agencies are in the CAFO NPDES general permit renewal. And so that document is in development yet, and it's queued up for activity after the MOU conversation takes place at the EQC. That permit, the general permits expire every 5 years. And as part of that expiration, the agency sends out renewal reminders or renewal forms to all of the registrants of that permit, and ask them to complete the renewal form and send it back. And what that renewal form does, it's very important because it administratively extends the permit in a situation that we're in now. So that permit expired in February 28th, 2021. And so as of March 1st, 2021, the agency couldn't bring anybody new onto that permit. And people that were on the permit before that date were administratively extended, or the permit was continued for them past that date, as long as they completed their renewal form and got it into us before that February 28th date. This was an interesting time, probably for many reasons, but this is the first time since I've worked in the program at ODA that we had a few NPDES registered CAFO permitted facilities that failed to complete their renewal prior to that February 28th date. And that had never happened to us programmatically before. This is the fourth time we've renewed this permit, issued a renewed permit. And, with that activity, we had to talk to our partners to figure out how do we respond. Never had that happen before. So there were several different classes of folks that dropped off the permit for different reasons, and there were in total 22 facilities that didn't renew timely, and that group of 22 had kind of two major characteristics that we looked at a little bit differently. There's a group of those facilities, 4 of those 22 were in some phase of closing out their facility, where they didn't have any animals, and they still had the permit because they were they were in a closeout phase, trying to clean up and or decommission their waste storage facilities such that the agency could sign off on the permit requirement and not require them to have a permit anymore going forward. And so with those, we're working on compliance documents to give to them to say that they need to complete this activity by some date certain, and if not, they'll have to figure out a way to get another permit. The other group of folks were folks that were operating and either had animals or were going to have animals. Some of them were seasonal facilities that necessarily didn't have animals at the time, but planned on having them in the future. Those facilities need to have a permit, and so our outreach to them has been, you've lost your permit coverage if you have to start from scratch and obtain a new permit. And so of those facilities, 11 of the 22 are in some stage of application. They've completed applications to us, they've applied, and we've already given them new permit registration for a WPCF general permit if we could. They've applied for an NPDES permit, which we don't have right now. But once they've completed their application, that is informing us that they intend to get a new permit coverage when we're able to give that to them. And so we're moving forward, working through those different scenarios. There are a group of folks that we still haven't heard from yet, and we're working with within our agency and with our partners to develop appropriate compliance response to them. We've already sent the first round out, and now we'll be working on a second round, telling them, basically trying to figure out what are their plans, and then here's what they need to do to comply. So that's kind of an overview of the status of these. I don't know if anybody had questions on either the renewal of the general permit itself and or these permit, the folks that failed to renew that dropped off. All right, well, stay tuned as we move forward with that activity, and hopefully we can get folks back through the process and not have this happen again. I think there were multiple reasons why, and hopefully we can educate folks and avoid that in the future. I see there's a message in the chat about, can you tell me the final category of the non-renewal? So there was a renewal. There was a group of people that are going to cancel their permit coverage ultimately and decommission their facility such that it doesn't need a permit. So that's one group. There's a group that have applied for a new permit, and there's two subcategories in that group. One, they've applied for a permit, and the permit they've applied for is one we have, the WPCF general permit. It's valid. We can sign people up to that. So we've done that. In those cases, the other subgroup of applicants that we have complete applications require NPDES coverage. We don't have an NPDES general right now, so they have to wait until that permit's available to actually get noticed on to that permit. So that's a subclass. The third class of folks is ones we have not heard from at all. And so with those, we'll have to do a second outreach to them to determine what their situation is and what their plans are, and take appropriate compliance response depending on what we hear from them. So those are the explanation about where we're at with the different groups. All right. Any other questions about permit renewal or permit drop-offs? All right, not hearing any. The next item that I want to bring up is the 235 item, which is the ODA process management system and CAFO data review. And so I asked Christy to help with this item, and so she'll be presenting the bulk of the information here. And I was going to kick it off with in early 2020, our whole program area, the natural resource program area, and so that's the fertilizer program, the pesticide program, CAFO program, ag water quality program, and the saltwater district program, jointly under our NERPA umbrella, undertook developing a process management system to at least in my mind, the way I describe it is this helps us visualize what our processes look like about how we get things done. So as an example, how we issue a CAFO permit, or how we register a fertilizer or a pesticide, or how we complete a compliance action on a CAFO or an ag water quality site or a fertilizer violation. And so all of the work that we do in these different programs, we wanted to do a process flow about how the steps that it takes to get the work done, and then put metrics on those steps so that we could track it. Some programs had a lot of data already, and Christy's going to talk about that. Some programs, develop data in response to this effort, but it's a lot of it is a visual, gives a visual context to how we do work, what work that we do, and how we do it in a process flow. So Christy's going to talk specifically just only about the CAFO program. So some of the slides you'll see. There's other programs that have data in there that either won't be complete, but we're just going to focus on the CAFO program's data today. And so, Christy, if you want to take it away, and then folks, as we go through this, if anybody has questions, feel free to chime in. Thanks.
Sure. Can you hear me? Is my sound okay?
Yep, sound good.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I'm really only going to be talking about the you see on the screen the OP4, conducting inspections, investigations, and enforcement, because that's the only data that we have been submitting. Lately, we are going to be providing customer service data with public records requests and complaints. And so I'll kind of go over that another time. But today we're just going to focus on the inspections, investigations, and enforcement. So first, I'll kind of just tell you what the process management system is about. And this is called a fundamentals map, and it includes our key goals, our outcomes, and our processes. We measure it to track and measure performance. We evaluate performance reviews to evaluate how to measure success. And we do it for transparency and understanding across programs. And then why did we decide to do this? To make good programs even better, potentially improve time management and productivity, so we could make data-driven decisions, so we could have a visual process flow, and to develop a comprehensive view of process and how they relate to each other. We identify outcome measures that are in line with the NERPA mission and vision, and improve customer experience with complaints and compliance. And our goals for this are to have effective compliance, regulation, and enforcement, effective education and outreach, effective partnerships and clear communication, and excellent customer service. So we all kind of got into different groups with data experts for each program area. And we decided how we were going to tally up our data and what are the similarities and what things do we do that we can't really provide data for, because it would just take too much time to get that data out of our databases. So we started out with our compliance and enforcement. And Kevin Fenn, who was actually on this call too, he helped us come up with this. He came up with this spreadsheet where we can put our information in, and then it tallies it for all programs to see how we're doing. And so the first item that we tally is, and these are all inspections that the CAFO program does. So for the first one, complaint investigations, it would be complaints on permitted or non-permitted facilities and any follow-ups to those complaints. So we would figure out how many there were and how many resulted with no violations. And then it gives us a percentage of that, so we can see how we're doing in that aspect. And then we have another metrics here, OM1B, compliance rate. and these are routine inspections. And these are only for permitted CAFOs. And so in this one, we count the routine inspections, our education review inspections, follow-up inspections, closeouts, and planning assistance. So we take all of those inspections that were done on permitted facilities and put the total in here, and then the ones that have a violation, we take those, we minus those from this number, and that would be our routine cases with no violations. And then that gives us a percentage of how many of our inspections have resulted in a violation. And then the final part of this would be our agency action, our total time frame. So we set a metrics here on how long we thought it would take us to get these different enforcement actions completed. And so we take how many we complete, how many we had to do, how many we issued, and then how many we did in the time frames that we set out for ourselves. And then that gives us our total there. And then they have a business review where they present this information and find out what the outcomes are and how we're doing and how we can improve. And then we have other meetings where we talk and see if there's more stuff that we could count, if there's a way we can get more information out of our database that would be helpful. And this will also help with our the CAFO program annual report, because all of that information would also be included in that. So this is I can't say the word today, I'm sorry. This is pretty new to us, and I've only worked on the data part. So if you guys have any questions on anything, there are more experts online here that could help also. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, you're good, Chris. I can hear you. Are there anybody have questions or comments?
Sorry,
or either Christy or I.
Ask, but
I really like it. I mean, it's a great visual. It's easy to track, and you know, it was a nice overview. I look forward to actually being able to. I was able to make it a little larger. Some of it's still a little fuzzy, but being able to read through everything, I thought it was really helpful, especially when most farms are in compliance, and that probably isn't what the general public would believe. So this would show the number of complaints, number of inspections, and what was valid and what wasn't. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure. You know, one of the other specific things that, you know, there's all these other tasks that I kind of, in my bucket, I call them administrative activities. And so like reviewing an animal waste management plan or nutrient management plan, you know, so we're developing timeframes for when, you know, we get a plan in, we're going to log it in, we're going to give ourselves so many days to confirm that it's complete. And if it is complete, we're going to give ourselves so many days to confirm that we can approve it or not. And so those are things that are under development, and we'll add those in there. But it'll help us track that activity. And so remember that this ends up kind of being an average of all the work, where sometimes you get something in the door and it's approvable right off the bat, and it takes you 2 or 3 days, and sometimes, you know, you're 200 days out and you're still not approved. But you have a big list of, well, this is how many times it went back and forth. So again, I think this will provide us a system to input that information into, and to look and track. Are we meeting those goals? Are we not meeting those goals? And then the interesting conversation comes, if you're not meeting those goals, then you're going to try to figure out, well, you know, what's going on? Why are we not there? And so I think it's, you know, we use we've got a key performance measure we have to present to the legislature. So that's one of the things that we inputted in here. We have a report required that we produce for DEQ with all of our activities every year. A lot of those data points are now showing up in this document as well. So for the CAFO program, it's been relatively easy to integrate just because we've been data-driven for a long time. The fertilizer program is very data-driven in another way, but it hasn't used the data in this regard very much. And it doesn't have a key performance measure for that program specifically. And so I also manage that program, and it's been an interesting, discovery walk with that group, because we're starting from scratch, developing, lining out our processes and figuring out how we're going to attach timeframes and numbers to it. So it's been valuable for that regard.
It was interesting when all of us got together to talk about our different processes, how we had some similarities, but a lot of differences, but we kind of had the same data, we just called it something different. So that was really interesting to me.
And then, as Christy mentioned, we feed the data into, there are a group of individuals called the data stewards. We feed the information to them quarterly. They prepare a few slides, and then we present that to the whole program. So all of the program staff, not just the data stewards or the people that manage data, but all of the employees of our NERPA area get together for a meeting quarterly, and we review all the data with all the participants. So everybody, a lot of times a person only has, they have a role that provides one little data point, but don't necessarily get to see what the whole, the project is at the end, or the whole outcome is at the end. This also, I think, does a nice job of putting that together so that folks can see how the work that they do is important to make the whole system work. All right, any other comments? Stephanie, I don't know if you had any other comments on process management system.
I don't think so. Yeah, great job, Christy. Thanks, Swim, for the additional information. I guess I will just say it is across several programs, as you heard, within the natural resources program area. It's really changed the way I talk about our program area, and I talk about kind of the things that we do instead of what each program does, because we do have these 5 common processes that we use across programs. And I think that's often why a customer contacts us. They're not necessarily seeking a specific program, but they're wanting help on a task or activity. And so, yeah, I think to me, it's been very helpful to think about our core work this way and be able to talk about it. And I really appreciated all of the programs. They've really been the ones who've implemented this. So yeah, I think as Wim said and Christy said, it's really helpful to have the data to see how we're doing. I think if we do see time frames, or if we see in any area that we're not meeting our goals, it just prompts more questions so that we can problem solve, figure out what's causing those changes, and if there are process changes that we can make to help reduce those times and provide better service and provide the outcomes that we're striving to provide.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. And I just saw your note. I'm sorry I missed that, but one of the things we needed to mention was that there are 5 operating processes that we lined out that we felt, and again, the input that we got from this was all staff and all programs provided input into these processes. And the question we asked is we wanted them to be able to see themselves somewhere in this activity list here. The OP1 and 2, so the collaborating partnerships, is still under construction. It's not fully yet. And OP2, the issuing permits, registrations, and notifications, is also not fully built out yet. So there may be more show up underneath there, and once those get built out, there'll be data being collected for those activities. then that will complete the build, if you will, on all of the 5 processes. And then quarterly, again, we'll look at data, report out, and have a conversation with all the groups. So I think it's been valuable, as both Christy and Stephanie mentioned. Listening to the conversation from other programs and other staff members, I think provides insight to the rest of us. So it's been valuable that way.
Yes, and we're going to be reporting on the OP5 starting next week. So for the next meeting, I should have additional data that I might be able to show you in regards to that also.
All right, thanks so much, Christy. Any last question or comment on this? All right, we'll go back to the agenda here. And it looks like it's time for the partner agency update. So I'm going to just turn the mic over to anybody that's on the line. If you just want to introduce yourself and provide your update, we'll go from there. Anybody on the line with us from NRCS, USDA agencies?
Hi, Wim. I don't have any updates for you.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Appreciate it. Nick, are you on? I reached out to Nick earlier, Nick Peak with EPA. He's the Region 10 Ag Advisor. Not hearing him. Anybody else with an update? I guess I'll provide one then. The one I had asked Nick to talk about a little bit, so I can provide what I'm aware of it. And that's a recent court ruling that came out of Washington State about their NPDES general permit up there, and the agency Department of Ecology up there had been sued, and the Pollution Control Hearings Board heard the case and ruled on it. And then there was an appeal on that ruling, and so the appeals court heard that appeal and ruled on that. There were several parts of that. One piece was that the permit, had some technical pieces of it. One being what's called TSUM 200, which is a calculation used to determine when cool season grasses break dormancy after January 1st of any year and start growing, which means they start utilizing nutrients. And I think the litigants wanted that calculation to be used statewide, and the agency said, well, it's only really applicable on the west side because that's where it was developed for west side climates and precipitation and crops. The judge ruled that it needs to be used statewide. They also ruled that the permit didn't adequately talk about an acronym that the Clean Water Act uses called All Known and Reasonable Technology. And so they required the permit writers to go back and include that in there. And they specifically wanted that included to discuss potential leakage rates from manure lagoons, and felt that the judge felt that the permit didn't discuss that. One of the things that our permit does, it probably also lacks the discussion specifically of ACART, but we do that in Oregon as a policy matter. And so currently, any earthen lagoon constructed in a groundwater management area would have to be double lined with leak detection or be a impervious facility like a concrete tank. And so we do require those things, as a policy decision and not as a piece of the permit itself. So I think there are a lot of things where, you know, our permit or our program would be able to say that yes, we do those things in Oregon. But we'll be looking through that decision, and as we're, you know, in the process right now of renewing our NPDES general permit, and see if there's valuable information for us to look at in there. I think you know, the other piece of information there was that permit. Well, in December, that the Washington permit had 24 registrants. I think it has 26 now, and EPA's calculation is that Washington State has 109 large CAFO facilities, and with 26 of those 109 covered under the permit. The Oregon stats say that there's 112 large CAFOs in Oregon, and EPA reports that 365 of those 112 are registered. And that really what that means is all the 112 are registered to NPDES permits, but also Oregon registers small and medium-sized facilities to NPDES permits, and that's why our numbers are so much greater there. All right, anybody else with a comment from an agency perspective? Updates? All right, so we'll open it up for public comment. So anybody is welcome to take the mic and make whatever comment you'd like. Any members of the public would like to make a comment, that would like to make a comment?
I'll jump in. Hi, this is Tara Heinzen from Food and Water Watch on the phone. I'm wondering if you could provide any updates on the Easter Day permit and also on the JS Ranch Foster Farms facility permit near Scio.
Yes, I can do that. Provide a brief update on those two. So the JS Ranch permit, this is an application that we have for a poultry facility in Lynn County, and that particular permit has not gone to public notice yet. So it's a large facility, proposed new large chicken broiler facility. It does need to go to notice and have a hearing, you know, prior to the agencies making any decision on a permit. And currently that is not in notice, has not gone to notice yet. The Easter Day update, most recently, information from ODA and DEQ's shops were that on Thursday last week we sent a letter to the permit applicant for the Easter Day Farms Dairy LLC, and that the applicant's name is Cody Easterday. We sent him a letter asking him to withdraw his application because with the restructuring of business entities that he's involved in, he's no longer, or our belief is that he's no longer the owner or the operator of the facility. And so we've issued that letter to him, asking him to, respond with a withdrawal by July 15th, or the agencies would deny the application. And that's pretty much the limit of update that I have on that.
Thanks. So you don't know that the application has been withdrawn yet? Still waiting?
As far as I'm aware, I have not seen any withdrawal paperwork come across my desk at this point, no.
Okay, thanks. And on the JS Ranch facility, is there an estimated timeline on a potential draft permit or not yet?
Yeah, I'd say not yet. I mean, we're still evaluating information, and information is still coming in. So I don't have a good timeline on that. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
I would mention there is there are two facilities in notice currently. One there's a hearing tomorrow. It's the Brad Hebner. It's a beef facility operation in Malheur County. All right, last call for public comments from anybody. All right, not hearing any. We'll move to the industry updates. Anybody, industry operators, representatives have news or updates you'd like to share with us? I guess the other thing I'd mention too is we're always open for ideas about agenda items for this group. And so if anybody has thoughts on a presentation that you'd like to hear or a group you'd like to hear from, feel free to send that on to me and we'll do our best to try to line something like that up. Our next meeting is going to be in October, the first Thursday or second Thursday. I can't remember which one it is, but Thursday in October will be coming up, and we do have the tile drain reactor presentation lined up, but definitely looking for ideas if anybody has them for things you want to hear. Last call for industry updates. All right, well, not hearing anybody. I definitely appreciate, let me look at the chat one time just to make sure we're not missing anything over there. Yeah, not seeing anything there either. Thank you all for spending time with us today and appreciate all your comments and input. Again, we'll be sending out an agenda probably about 30 days prior to our October meeting, and look forward to seeing you all there again. Thank you all. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Wim.
You're welcome.